Hi, class, and welcome to the first week of the geology part of the course. We're going to look at the GeoLab number 1 today, and I'm just going to give a quick rundown of some of the things in here and how to use them. So we're looking at an introduction to plate tectonics here today. Um, the lab starts off with some pre-lab questions, which I do often. This is just to kind of get you thinking about like what do you already know about the content that we're going to learn, and just kind of starting to spark some of those ideas as we move forward. So when you get to the meat of today's lab, we're going to be working with Google Earth again. So you should all have this downloaded on your computers, hopefully already. If not, you can grab it from here. We're going to use the Earth tools, a thing that we used last week. If you need that again, if you just go to Files and into Lab Resources, you can just download the earthtools.kml. And if you just put that on your desktop and double click on it, it will open up for you Google Earth. And you'll notice that you should have over here in the Places part of your folder all of these really cool different things you can click on. This is some of the stuff we looked at last week, right? The sea surface temperature. You can click on these different maps. So for us, we're going to be in this plate tectonics ones, and we're not just going to want to click on this because that turns everything on at once. We're going to want to look at things individually. So if you hit this down arrow, it may just show you this symbol, but just hit this again, and then you'll get all these different folders. So there's a ton of stuff in here that we can look at. One of the things you'll be doing is kind of looking at volcanic eruptions. So if you click these two volcano buttons, you notice that some stuff appears on the Earth. Now be careful of your zoom, right? If you're zoomed out too far, you won't be able to see the symbols. And notice as I zoomed in, did you see how a bunch of those just appeared, right? So you need to be at kind of the right level of zoom to see these things on here. But so what you're going to be doing is so we hop back over to the lab sheet and scroll down. You've got this really magnificent map of the world here. And I know that it's difficult going from a 2D map and you're copying things from a 3D map. I know that there's a little bit of distortion there. So we're just going to do the best job that we can. I recommend, by the way, for the different things that you're going to be mapping and marking on here, use different colors, different symbols, so that this map can then be very clear for you. Okay, so you're going to mark different patterns of, I mean, look at these volcanoes. They're just, I would say that they're everywhere, but they're not everywhere, right? Like, look at that blank nothing out there. The volcanoes, for whatever reason, they are grouped, right? And so you're going to mark that. The other thing you're going to be marking is earthquakes and where those things are. And as you move from like one grouping of objects to another, I highly recommend, look at all those volcanoes. I highly recommend, and now that we've spun the world around funny, as you move from thing to thing, turning off one thing before, right? Because we're also going to look at earthquakes before going on to another. All right. So, and so there's tons of really great stuff we're going to be marking on here. You can turn the legend on if you want to see what different things mean, and then turn it off because it does like take up like almost a quarter of the map. Excuse me. So you're going to be investigating things inside of Google Earth. So just follow the directions, right? You're going to mark the earthquakes. You're going to mark the volcanoes. You're going to talk about the patterns you see. You're going to mark the different types of boundaries. So there's the transform boundaries, right? So you can come over here and look, the transform boundaries are right there. There's one file. Look at that little teeny red line. So these are just kind of little red lines you'll see around the globe. Mark those. You're going to do the convergent boundaries. Make sure you get both buttons, right? This first one only turned on arrows that kind of gives a direction, right? And then this one actually shows where the plate boundary is. You're going to do the divergent boundary. And so we want, yeah, both buttons on here too, right? Look at the spreading boundary. So this gives me the arrow. This shows me where the actual plate is. And then when you have all of the lines drawn out from the transform, the convergent, and the divergent plate boundaries, you should have mapped essentially you should have mapped out the plates around the planet as you kind of go through and mark all this stuff. And then answer these little questions about the things that you're marking. In this next section of the lab, we're going to look at specific boundary types. So for example, like oceanic, divergent, okay? And by the way, if you watch this little YouTube video, it'll give you some more information on here because I don't want you to go into there blind because the content I mean, I think all this stuff is really cool. So you're going to see a lot of cool stuff. But so let's just look at this first one: Oceanic, Divergent. One of the best. Whoop, look at that. Okay, so if I bring up my Divergent boundaries again, okay, so when I say oceanic, look, this is the ocean, so this is oceanic plate. So I have an oceanic plate, and they're diverging, they're coming apart. So here's an example of oceanic divergent. And so you can see that here on the map. You can zoom, oh, hold up, whoa. You can zoom in on this to kind of see what's going on down here. But as you get closer and closer, you'll notice that what we're looking at here are some really huge mountain ranges on the bottom of the ocean floor at this plate boundary. So you're going to talk about, well, why is that? Why does it look like they look that way? Why do we have these mountains in the middle of the ocean? And it's about plate boundaries. Look at that cool boundary. You can see its line. It follows the mountains. So for each of these, you're going to find different. So here's oceanic, continental, convergent. So for example, if I come over here, look, here's an oceanic plate, and you can see it converging. Actually, the better ones down here. Oceanic plate moving this way, converging with this continental plate. And you see right here at the bottom of the ocean, you have this huge trench, okay? And so these are the kind of things you're going to find at the oceanic continental convergent boundaries where they're coming together. Excuse me. So you're going to go through, you're going to map these things out, and so that's what that looks like. You're going to plot all of that stuff on this really awesome map. So by the time you're done, there's going to be a lot of detail on this map. So that's part one of the lab. Huge investigation on what the plates are doing, a little bit into the cause of the motion of the plates, and some of the evidence that we have, like geologic evidence, at least with the volcanoes and the earthquakes, in terms of like where the boundaries are and why they, and a little bit on kind of what they're doing. So for this next part of the lab, part two, relative, I probably should put in here relative rock dating, because it's not like relative dating, right? You shouldn't date your relatives, but relative rock dating. Okay, so how does that work, right? So again, a couple of pre-lab questions. So you're going to look at these first three images, and what I want you to do is these are cross sections. It's like this kind of shows it a little bit better. Like, look, there's the land on top. You've got a house and a tree, and here's a cross section of what the earth looks like underneath all of that. That's what these are too, right? Cross sections of what the earth looks like underneath the surface. And what I want you to think about really carefully up here is, okay, so here's this type A, it's this, whatever that is. Here's this B, this thing that kind of cuts across all of this. And then C is this layer that looks like it's made of bricks. Now, it's not really made of bricks, but they just put the different symbols on this so that you can tell the layers apart. And what I'd like you to do here is I want you to determine, so relative rock dating, what it's all about is like, is you're just trying to see, okay, if I see these layers, like which layer came first, which came second, which came third, and it gives me a relative view of like what's oldest and what's youngest. So that's what's going on here. So looking at this, and you're seeing layers C, A, and B, what came first, what came second, what came third. And I want you to think about this, just trying to decide like, okay, how could these things have all happened? And then put your guess kind of out here to the side, writing an explanation for why you think it happened the way it did. Same thing over here, right? What layer was first, what layer was second, what layer was third, fourth, fifth, and kind of write an explanation like, why are you ordering the layers the way that you're ordering them, okay? So we're doing a little bit of guesswork. This is a lot easier to do in a pair, so if you want to group up with someone as you do this part of the lab, or even the first part of the lab, right? Do the labs in groups. It makes it lots easier. And then for this back half, now you'll notice, right, these are pretty simple ones. These ones down here at the bottom get a little more complicated. And so what I'd like you to do is take a look at this video. And the person in this video is going to introduce three kind of laws that govern this relative dating that we're looking at. And I want you to use those laws and think about those principles to then try and like rethink your ordering and go through and try and decide, okay, what came first, what came second, what came third. for something crazy like some of these. Uh, and just like normal, I'm not going to take off points. I'm not looking for like perfect accuracy here. But what I'm really looking for is your engagement and your thought processes and especially right as you make decisions about what goes first, what goes second. Like, tell me, what laws are you using to apply that reasoning? And you may use a group. You may say, well, I know that E came first, and then F, and then G. I mean, at least for these three layers, right? E had to be there, F was laid on top, G was laid on top of that. Uh, and you're going to use the law of superposition for that one or whatever. Okay. So think about these and do your best as you try and think about, well, what came first, what came second, what came third, and using those laws and those principles. So that's what this lab looks like. Two parts. And some reasoning. We're going to use Google Earth. It's some really great content in here. So soak up your experience with Google Earth. It's the last time we'll use it in a class. And good luck with this, and I'll see you all on Tuesday night. Bye.